On this edition of Influence Living, you're going to meet Betzaida. Now, Betzaida had multiple marriages, divorce after divorce after divorce. But someone influenced her life. And then you're going to meet a fellow by the name of Vladimir. Vladimir reached a point in his life where he wanted to kill himself. And then finally, here on this edition of Influence Living, you're going to meet Christopher. He got himself lost in the music scene of Atlanta, but then something changed all of that. All that and much more right here on Influence Living. Welcome to this edition of Influence Living. I'm your host, Wade. Here on Influence Living, we love to ask individuals who has influenced your life. Have you ever noticed that when some people go through difficult times, they come out still standing up because there is something that just seems to be with them as they move through very difficult times? What is influencing them? That's what we're going to ask individuals. Our first person here on this edition of Influence Living is a lady by the name of Betzaida. Now, she's from Puerto Rico, and her early years were spent from going to man to man to man, divorce after divorce after divorce. And she finally came to a point to realize that all of that was going nowhere. But she allowed someone to influence her life who has radically transformed her life. Here's her story.
My name is Betzaida Vargas. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I came to USA when I was 30 years old. I've been here for 20 years. This year I'm going to be 50 years old. I'm married with Freddie, a good man, and I have two kids, ages 26 and 15. I was raised Catholic, and I was Catholic for 39 and a half years. That's a long time. I never read the Bible, even that I went to a Catholic school with nuns and everything in my country, but I wasn't a Christian, and I didn't have much fear of God. In those years, I made a lot of mistakes in my life without even realizing that I was doing stuff that was wrong. By the age of 35, I already had not one, not two, but 3 husbands and 3 divorces. I was married 3 times by that time. And it got a little bit messy and complicated. My last husband, the third one, left me pregnant, 2 months pregnant. That was when I hit bottom. I had a good job, I had my own house, I had, everything was okay, but my private life, that was a little bit messy. I was alone all my pregnancy. That husband never came back, and I raised my son by myself, and I already have a daughter, so I stay alone with my 2 kids. When I was pregnant, like 4 months, I was decided to abort my son, to have an abortion. And I have no problem with that at all. I say, I have to get rid of this problem. So I went to my doctor. My doctor gave me the information that I needed to call. I put it in my bag, and I said, I need a week to make a history, how this happened, how I lost the baby, because my family already knew. So in that time, I saw a billboard that say "Fear not" and has like a nativity set on it, and I say "Look first," and I say, let me Google that, and it say there, "Don't be afraid, Mary, you're going to have a son." So I think that was the first time in my life that I have some fear of God, and I didn't abort my son. So I was like, maybe this is a message from God, maybe I shouldn't do it, and I didn't, and I'm happy to report that I didn't do it. But that was my life before Christ, a mess, a big mess. I met Jesus when I was 39 and a half years old, and I met another man. I was alone for the last 4 years, and then I said, let me try this again. So I met this man, and he was a Christian man. And we met on a Wednesday, and he invited me to church that same day. Happens to be that the church was in the same road that I lived. And I went there with him on Sunday. On Thursday, I went, I got a dress, a decent dress. He said, you have to come in dress and with a decent one, okay? You cannot come like you are now, like, with that cleavage. So I say, okay. So I went, I got a Bible, and I show up on Sunday. And I like it. It was an American church, being Hispanic. I tried that. I never complained. I was there for 4 years. And after that, I started learning about the Bible, reading the Bible. I got in love with the Bible. And one day, while in church, I saw a story there. And I read it. It was the woman at the well. And I say, wow, I think that I can be a Christian. A year and a half later, I married the man that introduced me to Jesus. It was wonderful. He's been my husband for 9 years now. After 5 years, I was in my house, decorating my house. I took a day off to decorate my house. And while I was there in the morning, I was alone. I had an encounter. This is a big encounter with God. And he commanded me to do a ministry to support women without husbands. For a couple hours, I resisted, but I was weeping. It wasn't a nice experience. People sometimes say, oh, when God talked to you, you see angels coming. That wasn't my experience. God was being harsh to me, like, oh, you are bragging about everything that I gave you? So now that you had a husband, a good house, and a good job, everything is good, so now you just brag about how good I am and you do nothing for nobody else? He reprimanded me. That's what he did that day. And he commanded me to write. So I wrote a blog and sent it to my family and friends, and that's how this started. A year later, based on what God told me, I launched my ministry in social media. As today, 5 years later, we have more than 400,000 followers online, and I already wrote 3 books and 3 Bible studies. Obedience is the word that I describe when people say, how this happened? A woman with a past like you, how this happened? And I say, I was obedient. When God called me, I responded the same day, and I put into action the same day. I didn't doubt what he was telling me. I didn't ask permission from nobody. My husband didn't understood. My mom said, what? Don't do that? Well, I did it. And I'm happy to report that God did a rescue in me. Not only rescued me from my past, but he gave me a future that now I have a legacy. Many women, thousands of women are helping me in our leadership program called Samaritan Army. And they are helping us in the ministry to reach out to more women. So the Woman at the Well is the name of our ministry, Samaritana del Pozo in Spanish. And we are a bunch of women running happily to our villages to tell other women about the good news. That's my life after Jesus ministry. Unbelievable. I cannot even believe it, how God is been using me after that.
Sadly, Betsaida's story is all too common. People may not go from man to man to man or woman to woman to woman, but they're chasing this or chasing that, and they find out that love and that acceptance that they were looking for is nowhere to be found. And sadly, some people go their entire lives and never figure that out. Betzaida finally figured it out. She realized that only God could fill that ache in her life for belonging and acceptance. And after she received that relationship with God through his son, Jesus Christ, then she could enter into a great marriage relationship. Today, she has a wonderful marriage relationship, and she is helping women like her by the millions around the world via the internet. She is making a difference and influencing lives around the world. But first, she had to allow God to influence her own life. Have you done the same? Have you taken a moment and just said, God, I need you in my life. I need you to influence me. And my life is spinning out of control. I just have no purpose. Perhaps that's you. And if that's the case, I would like to offer you an opportunity to receive Jesus Christ into your life. And how do you do it? Well, you do it the same way that Betzaida would have done it. And you don't need me to give you that opportunity. Jesus is the one that gives you the opportunity. And he says that if you'll believe in him, he says he's the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody comes to the Father except through that belief in him. And there's no other way to get to God except through Jesus Christ. And you could say a simple prayer like this to God right now. Dear God, I believe in you. I believe in your Son, Jesus, and I know that Jesus died for my sins. Please forgive me of my sins. I receive you into my life. Give me that purpose, that belonging that I so long for. Fill the void in my life. In Jesus' name, amen. If you just pray that prayer for the first time here at Influence Living, we would love to know. Please shoot me an email, wade@influenceliving.com, and let me know, or maybe you have a God story. And perhaps if we're videotaping in your city someday, we can gather your story as well and hear how God has influenced you. Maybe you just take a moment and just send your prayer requests as well. There's the email, wade@influenceliving.com. The mailing address is right there as well. We would love to hear from you, or you can contact us through Messenger on Facebook if you'd like to. If you'd like to see programs of Influence Living, then go to Facebook, look up Influence Living, go to YouTube and look up Influence Living as well. We've got a lot of programs right there for you to view. We would love to have you do so. Well, up next here on Influence Living, we're going to meet a fellow by the name of Vladimir. Now, Vladimir got so depressed that he actually wanted to kill himself. How did he get out of that? How did God influence his life? He's going to tell you in his own words. Listen to this.
I was born back in 1992 in a big country called Russia, and there it's known for its amazing looks and designs, but also for its poverty. And so back in Russia, alcohol and things like that are a lot cheaper than bread and water. My mother was an alcoholic, and so because alcohol is a lot cheaper than anything else, that's the thing to do. And so I was born with a hole in my heart with asthma, pneumonia, things like that, because alcohol just, when pregnant women are having alcohol, it just ruins the baby inside. And so I was born with a lot of problems, and because of that, in Russia you have to pay for everything. So you pay for your bed, your pillow, your blankets. You don't just go into the hospital here and just have your child and then walk back out. In Russia you have to pay for everything. And being the youngest child out of 3 older sisters, 2 older brothers, it's quite an expensive ordeal. And so unfortunately I was put into an orphanage in Smolensk in Russia, and there I spent 4.5 years in an orphanage, and where people share beds, shoes were too small, and very cold in winter where it snows, bears in the forest. And so then back in 4.5 years old, I was adopted and into a lovely New Zealand family here in Wellington, and it was a very good decision in my life. And for them to come all the way to Russia and to adopt me was quite a big thing to do. So school wasn't my thing. I never enjoyed school. I'm not academic, not sports, not maths, not science, but horticulture was something that I was very good at. I'm a very green-fingered person. And so because school just wasn't my thing, I got into smoking, trying to work out what groups to find and hang out with, and just bummed around on my own and found friends where I can. And so never enjoyed school, always was the one who got bullied, and wasn't the bully but was the bullied one. And so I put up a pretty quick wall and just did everything on my own. And so I also, when I was going through high school, I found out that I was adopted, and every teenager when they're in high school trying to work out where do they belong in the world, where are their goals, where are they going to move to, are they going to go to university, and then they drop a bombshell saying, oh, by the way, you're adopted. And for a 16-year-old, that's quite a heavy weight to put onto when you're trying to work out, am I good at art, am I good at sports? Oh, you're adopted. And so I struggled with that quite a bit, and to the point of being diagnosed in hospital for suicidal depression. And where with that knowledge I thought, well, I'm not here, I'm not wanted, my parents back in Russia didn't want me, so they gave me up. So I might as well not belong in this world. If the world stopped, I could get off and everything else would be all okay. And so I struggled with that quite a bit with the depression, and went really, really low in it. Would run away from home, run away from the hospitals, run away from anything would break things, would cut myself constantly, find any sharp thing, whether it's a grater, a glass, anything that could inflict harm to myself so I could release the pain back out. And it's not the wisest thing to do. So if you ever are in depression, there are good connections out there in the world that can actually get you through it, because if I can get through it, then you can get through it. And yeah, it takes time, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Back to the adult ward I went, and then got discharged and went to a church back in Wellington, quite a big church, and went on a camp that they were running, which was probably one of the really good decisions that I went to. And there was this really amazing speaker who was just sharing about life and hearing God's voice, and I was just like, okay, I could do this thing, like see what this could be. And there was one night that he was speaking, and that night God really told me what I was meant to do with my life, just for the portion that he gave me. And he told me to start a youth ministry back in Lower Hutt, and that it'll be called Ignite Youth. You'll have people growth, it'll be great, go for it. And at that moment that I was like, okay, God's got to be real, for him to really speak very specifically on where to lead my life. So I took it on, and running this youth ministry, got it all approved by the church, and it's been going now for 3 years. Continually people growth, continued staff coming on board, and it's to see where it was at the start to where it is now is very fulfilling. And looking back going, why would I ever think of ending my life? Because now I can see just the positives. But sometimes you have to see the things back in your past to really put you onto the future. And so did that. That was great. And then I really wanted to learn more of what is really God wanting to do in my life. And I love working with youth, love inspiring youth. Ever since going through depression, there's always been a heart inside me just going, there is so much more to life than what they're currently going through. And a lot of young teenagers are looking for that someone to equip them and just be like, you can get through this, I will champion you through this. And there is a light actually at the end of the tunnel.
Well, I just want to remind you that you're watching Influence Living. Thanks so much for watching. I trust that you enjoyed Vladimir's story. Up next here on Influence Living, you're going to meet a fellow by the name of Christopher. Now, Christopher was in Atlanta, and he was into the music scene, but that drug him far away from the God that he knew he needed to be serving. And then finally, he allowed God to influence his life. And oh my, what a change has happened in Christopher's life. He's going to tell you how God has influenced him. What a story. Listen to it now.
My name is Christopher Hellis, born in Brooklyn, New York. Moved to Jersey when I was about 6 months old. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, so that was a crazy experience growing up in a household being the youngest. I seen a lot going on and been through a lot. Having immigrant parents from Haiti and them only having Haitian culture, but me being influenced by TV, media, and being Americanized. I just felt like I lived a double identity my whole life. You know, who I was outside of the home, like feeding into certain things in the world, and then who I was when I came home, and who my parents saw me as, and who they raised me to be. I always had a conscious background of Jesus and God and most of the biblical stories, but not being there consistently, it made me disconnected from it spiritually. You know, I had a lot of head knowledge of God, but I didn't really ever feel it in my heart. We moved around a lot as a kid. The place that I really connected to and call home is Newark, New Jersey. Inner city, it's a rough place to grow up in. You see a lot, you go through a lot. Around 13, 14, I had lost communication with my father. Moving up there, I guess things had happened between him and my mom, and their relationship really soured to the point where I had no communication with him for a number of years throughout my teenage life. Right, going into my teenage years, I'm trying to figure out manhood, I'm trying to figure out girls, trying to navigate high school, drugs, partying, sex, all these different temptations, and I don't have my father there. I have my mother who's, you know, working to take care of the family, and her energy mentally, spiritually, and emotionally is being put in so many different areas that I felt like I fell through the cracks a little bit, and I had to raise myself on my own, especially during those years. My brother, although we didn't have the closest relationship, he was still my older brother. So there was that always that factor of protection and safety being around him. So he kind of became my father figure. This happened for, I guess, the first 2 years until around 16 years old. The most dramatic experience of my life happened when my sister passed away. She was only 26, and I'm 26 now. So just thinking about how short life can be, and her leaving behind 2 children, it just hit me hard. It made me confused, and I was already somewhat confused and angry about my father and my mother and different situations about how I grew up. For this to happen, it quickly spiraled into me shaking my fist at God, like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you picking on me? And I just became angry. That is how I characterized the last 3 years of my teenage years. I lost myself completely, my character. I started to dabble into smoking marijuana. I cared nothing about school anymore. I was a straight A honor roll student all the way up until about freshman year. Then it started to dip off, but by the time my sister passed away, I was kind of done with school. I was the kid in the back of the class who knew all the answers, didn't raise his hand, didn't want to get credit, didn't hand in papers, had them in my locker, had it finished, and probably would have got a B or an A or something like that on it, but just left it in my locker because I didn't want to hand it in. I finally got to a point where I realized I did have something to live for, once I realized that I had a very unique talent, which was music. The words started to captivate me. The stories that some of the rappers would tell in their music, it drew me in, and I could connect with it deeply. Music is what saved my life. Music is what started to open my mind up to theology, philosophy, and the search for God. And as I started to write things, I would literally have goosebumps and be shaking, like, where did that come from? The drive of that dream is what pushed me along into living life, just waking up in the morning and wanting to wake up. As I'm navigating the music world, I have life still going on. At this point, I'm 20, 21, turning 22, and all my friends are graduating college, they're getting degrees, they're, tackling and conquering some things in the real world. And here I am at Panera Bread or this place, just flipping burgers, working menial jobs. As things started to happen, I realized that, okay, I feel like I'm meant to impact the world through my words, but maybe it's not hip hop. Maybe it's not being a rapper. In 2018, in June, I made the boldest decision of my life to just leave everything, leave my entire life in New Jersey and go to Atlanta. It was just my faith in understanding that I have to take big risk if I want big rewards. I went for it, and it was a great experience being there, and I think that was the main transition from me having a comfortable life in New Jersey to coming down to Orlando, where I am now. And just the faith that I showed in God and His support in providing housing, food, shelter, clothing, everything that I needed on that journey in Atlanta, just surviving. It showed me that I am loved. I am supported, like God has my back. So it warmed me back up to the idea of coming to Him and surrendering whatever power I thought I had, whatever authority over my own life I thought I had. I'm like, I'll do way better partnering with God than doing this on my own. So I left my entire life in Jersey, and the only thing I had to stabilize my life and that I was familiar with was my girlfriend, the relationship. And when that was taken away from me, I hit a rock bottom point. And just being there, I remember having a distinct phone call with my mother where I told her, I don't have anything else. I'm intelligent, I'm smart, I'm crafty, but I can't scheme my way out of this. I'm at the end of my road. And she's like, come to Orlando, come stay with me. Coming here to Orlando, the first thing I knew that I needed to do before anything else, before trying to make friends, be in another relationship, or make professional connections and get money, the first thing I knew I needed to do was get right with God. Coming down here and really finding Jesus, it made the sacrifice of the cross a deeper sacrifice, especially for me, to realize that Jesus laid down His life for me, knowing all the things that I've done, knowing all the sin that I was living in. knowing all the decisions I've made, for him to lay down his life, it meant a lot for me. And it wasn't until acknowledging the life of Jesus that I started to find my life. I started to find my purpose once I fully understood his purpose. The purpose of his death became it gave me purpose to my life. I always tell people, you know, I was a lost soul. I asked a stranger for directions, and then I found Jesus. Like, that was my journey.
Well, you heard it from Christopher himself. He realized that all that he was doing left him so empty, so void. He realized he needed to make a change. Now, I know Christopher personally. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got a young baby on the way, and he is doing well. And it all began when he got his life right with Jesus Christ. When he did, and God began to influence his life was radically changed. And God will change your life as well, just like he did with Christopher. If you'll do what Christopher did and finally just give in, quit trying to find happiness and all the stuff around you. There's only one place, one person that can fill that void, and that is Jesus Christ. Christopher would have prayed a very simple prayer that you could pray right now. You're watching on your phone, you're there on your computer, you're up late at night watching TV or on YouTube or whatever it is, and you're watching this. Say this prayer with me, would you? Consider that. Mean it. You mean it from your heart. It's just not empty words. Say it. Chris would have prayed this prayer, something like this: God, I'm at my end, and I believe in you. I believe in Jesus. I know that Jesus died for me. I know that I'm a sinner. Please forgive me. I receive you into my life. I make you number one from this day on. In Jesus' name, amen. If you pray that prayer for the first time, I want to say congratulations. Now, it's more than just one little quick prayer and then you just go on and live however you want. Now you begin that journey with him. Find out who Jesus is. Begin reading in the book of the Bible called Luke in the Christian Bible. Begin to talk to God on a daily basis. That's prayer. That's what we call it. Go to a Christian church near you and ask them to grow you up in your faith. Say, listen, I received Christ. Now what do I do? And if they don't help you, find somebody that will. Here at Influence Living, we would love to know of your decision to follow Jesus. We'd love to hear your God story as well. Maybe if you just let us know if we're ever in your city or near you, videotaping sometime, we would love to also perhaps record your story. Let us know about it. Wade at influenceliving.com. Shoot us an email. Let us know of your decision. Maybe you got prayer requests. We have people that are praying on a weekly basis. They are praying for the needs of those who write in. We would love to hear from you. You see the details right there on your screen. You can also check out other editions of Influence Living on YouTube or on Facebook. Please share it with others. Tell them to listen to this great program. We'd love to have you do it. Oh, and one more thing. If you're ever in the Orlando, Florida area, I pastor a church by the name of Greenway Church. And go to greenwaychurch.com to find the details. We would love to have you at church. Well, that about does it for this edition of Influence Living. We'll see you next time. All righty. Bye-bye.